Loading. And now we are live.
Hey everyone.
Finally, we are getting better now.
And this made me nervous because like Philippe hits the button like we are live, but then it takes a few seconds. So are we live? I don't know. So
finally we are.
Yeah, I'm just gonna wait because we always wait until
just get the notifications, like see that people are joining.
Yes, we are live indeed.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. Welcome to this Tuesday Coffee Break live with the Game Changers theme.
Mm-hmm. So we'll split the work. So we'll look for the YouTube comments. We are on YouTube, and you look at the LinkedIn.
I look at the LinkedIn comments. So I'm just going to open this up now so that I can see what's coming in. Hi, John. Welcome to the show. So we can also show the comments of people so you can see what's being said. Mm-hmm. So today, a special one. We have a special guest joining today, one of my former colleagues. And before we actually invite her in the call, I just want to say the reasons. Actually, I want to count down the reasons that we invited her.
The reasons.
We have reasons. We have reasons to have her in this call. So can we do like a top 3?
So tell me.
Okay. So number 1, she's a no-dreams-just-goals queen. I know. Number 2, she's a digital specialist who moved from South Africa to Dublin, Ireland. And number 3, as I just said, she was one of my former teammates in LinkedIn. So we were working on the same team. We were made redundant at the same time, but she went on to launch her company on employer branding and corporate branding. And I'm really excited to hear how that's been going for her and what she's up to now. So we know those 3 things, and the rest we'll have to find out today in the call. Do you want to bring Samantha into the call today?
Let's go. So we just add. And hey, Samantha.
Hi.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
We have no audio from you now.
Yeah.
Oh, nothing. Has it come through?
No, not yet.
Let's see.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Good.
Good morning, guys. Good morning, Felipe.
Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Feeling full of energy despite it being so cold.
Thank
we just do a test. Maybe it's our sound.
Yeah. Okay. One sec, because we have a little bit of audio issues. I don't know anyone on the call if you can hear Samantha. Okay.
Yeah.
It might be on our side. We're just gonna test a few things so that we can make sure that we can hear you. Because otherwise, there's no really point to the coffee break. Okay. So.
Do you want me to
you're going to be here in leopard print, and you did not disappoint.
This is about the personal brand, right?
Exactly. When you speak about personal branding, this is it. This is you. So we have a few people joining now. We have Juan Marcos. Sound is perfect. Great to hear. So it was something on our side then.
Yeah.
So we're on those speakers now?
Yeah, we are on those speakers now.
Okay, great. So I just want to start before we dive into your personal story, because you made a post yesterday to kind of say that this was happening, that you were going to be on Coffee Break, and you tied it back to International Women's Day, which I really liked. And I just wanted to see what does International Women's Day mean for us, kind of maybe actually we can start with the men at the table. What does it mean for you? You have a daughter. So
so my mom is a hairdresser, so I think I grew up in really women's environment. So my mom is a single mom. I think the whole reference that I have was just on my mom's side. One of the days, I just follow many stories the whole year, because basically when you are in a hairdresser, you just listen. Everyone is kind of like a therapy session.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's so like I think it is a challenge time. I can't imagine that because I'm not in this app, but I heard so many stories kind of like for me it's special, and just to remind these whole stories and see look back like, oh, like they just deserve like a better. It's not just one day, but it's the full year. For me, the Women's Day it was the full year, and yeah, and yeah, and after a while, I just see that's it's not like also. I was talking with my daughter yesterday, and I said, "Oh, congratulations!" And she was like, "Oh, it is a hard time to say congratulations because it's not like a romantic time; it's a political time because the whole thing it is." I was like, "Oh, cool!" I'm learning now for my daughter. That's and
his daughter's very political.
And she's very political, and I think that's also a nicest thing to look back. But we still have a lot of space to grow. That's the I think the key point for now. We had a lot done, but I think we need to have more. That's my feeling for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if it took long, but
no, it's good.
Yeah.
What about you, Sam? What is your idea for International Women's Day?
I think for me, Rose, as women, we compete a lot, right? And I think that's what I wanted to kind of squash or eliminate really in my post and what I'm doing around Women's Day this year is how do we empower each other to become successful? I think, traditionally we as women can get a bit feisty when we feel like there's competition. We don't necessarily want to, raise women up with us as we succeed. And for me, that's really important, is really to just empower. And, that really speaks to the fact that, maybe raise and maybe be strong women as a collective. And I think, to Felipe's point, every day for me is Women's Day, and I like to see it that way. But we just got an extra special opportunity this year, I guess, to empower other women and help them shine.
I love that. And I think if we're talking about strong women, hearing your story, I was like, well, there you have it. That's a strong woman for me. Because you went on to launch your own company on employer branding, on corporate branding. And it wasn't an easy time because it was just like we were made redundant, and then it was just like it was there before we knew it, basically. So can you tell me a little bit about your story, about how that went?
Sure. I think if we look back, right, we kind of went through what we went through while the world was evolving. We all had to get used to really this constant change of pace. So for me, it was really, I think, turning it around and not seeing it as a detractor, but more an attractor. So for me, it was around finding the opportunity, right? And I wasn't always one that believed in destiny and following where the world had crafted for you and what path you were on. But for the first time, I kind of had to let go and remove myself from like that OCD kind of planning world and actually lean in, right, to my passion and lean into my why, which is, I suppose, how this business is actually evolved. And maybe just going back into that, really. So you touched on the fact that I'm from South Africa. And really, in a country like South Africa, for those that are on the call, that are my fellow country mates or people, we know, right, that there's such a deficit around visibility. And there's such a deficit around that economic opportunity piece. So for me, I suppose when this all happened, staying very true to my why and really wanting to fuel the growth around Africa and really wanting to empower my country, that really kept me very strong and pulled towards the sense of why essentially I wanted to start the business that is now the Social Craft. And I think when that happened, right, we were well looked after. LinkedIn looked after us. We were also obviously connected, right, to other opportunities within that business. And I think there, right, going back to the why and understanding how connected I am to driving the real economic opportunity in Africa for a lot of the millennials, right, that are really feeling the unemployment rate as they hit the market. That for me was so evident in the work that I wanted to do. So whilst I was interviewing for fantastic roles within the UKI team, I was offered a great job within MENA to go and be an account director there with LinkedIn. The whole time, what kept me really honest was, am I chasing vision or am I chasing money? So I think that's something that's also been very, very clear to me from a young age. And I was very fortunate enough, right, to have a mentor when I started my career who encouraged me to think about that. Because obviously when you chase money, the end goal is money, it's the paycheck. But how fulfilling is that, right? So if you chase vision and if you align yourself to really a strong vision and mission, the money comes, right? Because we're passionate about the work that we do.
Yes.
So when I suppose the redundancies happened, it kind of left me thinking, what impact do I want to make? And what impact does my business want to make within a market that I love and I'm so passionate about?
Right. I love what you say. I love that whole quote. I could just put it on the wall somewhere here. So can you repeat it again? If you're not, or if you're chasing money, or if you're chasing your vision.
So it's really ultimately vision or money. So if you're chasing, money, it's a paycheck, it's numbers at the end of the day. And we know, right, I think more so as young people, how unfulfilling that can be sometimes, right? So if we stay close to chasing a vision, that will always be rewarding, both from, I think, an emotional point of view and a financial point of view, because you don't actually end up working, so to speak, a day in your life.
Yeah. And like from speaking to you before this, we were talking about, because I've had a similar situation where there were opportunities, but that I really had to focus on, no, what do I want to do? How am I going to move these video projects that I'm working on forward? And what I really liked from hearing from you is actually, bring it back to the goal. What's the goal? Like, just kind of like keep recentering it to that goal. And I think the quote that you just mentioned, it's on, it's about the vision. And then I 100% agree that if you do what you love, you're probably best at that anyways. So then you're going to at some point, the money's going to come in as well.
Sure, let's do so, right, Rose?
Right. So yeah, because I think that's one of the hardest things is to actually, one thing is to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take this chance. But then the second thing is to say, I'm going to say no to this opportunity because I really believe in what's happening here. Yeah.
I do agree with that. I think like I have my YouTube channel that is a technical, like it's about coding, and I always like people ask, oh, which technology should go that, like what is the best technology to go, and the one that is like make more money. And my answer is just go for the technology that you want to work that like bring you joy, because once you are challenged, you're gonna feels good about resolve that, not be that threatening or stress. You just will enjoy and will have fun, like what are you doing, and money, it is a result of that over that passion. Then. Yeah.
By the way, on the comments, please let us know if you have any questions for Samantha, because we have her here now. So let us know in the comments what questions you have on how she turned her chapter around, or maybe other questions.
Sure. And for me, I'm on a streamer. Rose is on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn now. Today I have like streaming is a bit weird, but like we can see that there are like more comments there.
Yes, comments here.
Yeah. So everyone that likes Wayne and seeing the people that are liking that always like every live they're there. So hi everyone. And so what is next, Rose?
Yeah. So I think one thing that stood out to me about what you have on your LinkedIn profile and how you brand yourself is that there's two things. One, you have such a strong personal style. Like there's no way around it. Even how you said yesterday, like I'm going to be there wearing my leopard print, and you did. So how did you kind of hold on to that personal style? Because I know a lot of, for instance, our clients that we worked with before, and maybe even your clients now, people are afraid to actually show that personal side of themselves on LinkedIn. So how do you kind of hold on to that?
I think, Rose, a lot of what I do is defined around the fact that people actually remember the way you make them feel and not actually what you say. So I guess in my own personality, I've always been very gregarious as an individual. I was that intern that wore leather pants and Doc Martens in my own personal style. And I suppose that goes back to authenticity, right? And actually, being remembered as somebody that stands out, but so unintentionally and authentically. So, for me, it's around cutting through clutter, right? I'm a brand specialist. I work on brands. And we know, right, in a branding world, you're either a commodity or you're a brand. a commodity is tea, sugar, milk, right? It's things that we can interchange all the time. But how do we really, as professionals, start to present ourselves rather as brands than just as individuals, right? That can, I suppose, become numbers, become employees, etc. And that, again, I suppose, is going back into personal branding, into your why. What do you stand for as an individual? And maybe that's how Africa manifests in me, because almost it's so close to my heart. So maybe, a bit back through the personal story. I've been raised by a very strong woman, but more so one woman that stands out within this story is actually my domestic worker. So within, I suppose, if you work in Africa, we have these wonderful women that look after our homes, that look after us as children. And for me, I always remember thinking, she had a son, a similar age to me, and I never quite understood why we couldn't go to the same school, why he was going to the same university, etc. And it all came down, right, to that lack of exposure. And really, that's why from a young age, I kind of connected myself to a platform like LinkedIn, because I really saw in a country like mine where possibly, this guy that was the same age, he was probably, if not smarter than me in core competencies like maths and his native language, etc. But he wasn't getting access or exposure, right, to these university institutions, to opportunities to fuel his career. So I suppose, we were very lucky to be part of like this millennial boom, right, where we all became digital natives and we grew up in this space. And that's for me where a platform like LinkedIn became so connected back to actually what I wanted to drive from a young age, right? And creating a personal brand through a platform like LinkedIn has been phenomenal, right, to be able to draw attention to me as an individual. But what actually kind of connects me to the larger vision and mission is really that economic growth and opportunity. Because if we think about those people possibly sitting in underprivileged outlying areas, like that individual that I'm referring to now, who I kind of think of as my brother to this day, he would never have been able, right, or he still wouldn't have without an internet connection. And platform like LinkedIn really gives graduates, young people, an opportunity to really be seen, right, especially if they're not in the mainstream world. So kind of like linking that back to my personal brand and my why. My why has always been around Africa. So I suppose that's manifested in the work that I do and the content that I produce and the way that I look. So, I mean, I'm sure you can see around me, there's animal print cushions. I've got a crocodile next to my bed. So it's really all just things, right, that keep me honest and keep me aligned to really why I guess I work and for the market that I'm in, why I have this business. And I didn't just join another corporate. I didn't just join another market. So I think kind of understanding your why, packaging that with what you want to do as a professional is kind of manifested in my own content strategy, in how I appear on the platform. Another thing, going back to authenticity for me, is just around, again, how you own a certain niche within your industry. So again, I think that's been a big differentiator, right? And maybe myself in the social craft versus maybe other agencies, right? Is actually owning that personal branding piece. Because it's really through personal brand, right, that we build a network. And in the 21st century, in 2021, our network becomes our net worth. So really, if there's kind of one really big piece in that, it's around personal brand and really identifying who that is and who you are and what your vision and mission is as a professional and as a person.
Right. I could talk about this all day with you, seriously. One thing that I'm curious about, because we talked about the personal side of your brand, but there's also another side that really stood out to me. It's this catchphrase of no dreams, just goals. And I wonder how that has shaped your life.
Cool. So I suppose that's been my cover photo for a very long time, because I kind of, again, being from the tip of a tiny place like South Africa and being able, right, to be exposed to a business and a company and a career like LinkedIn, it's all come back to really that and being able to package that and break dreams down into actionable points. So I think, many people have made me maybe think I'm very ambitious, sometimes a bit audacious in my thinking. But really, I've always believed that a dream isn't something that's unattainable. It really is something attainable. If you can break down your dream into actions, right, into goals, that becomes realistic. So that's why in my mind, yes, dreams are obviously something that blue sky, silver linings, etc., but it's very much something that we can actually bring to life if we are dedicated, if we're consistent, and if we're very much intentional right? About where we want to go and the steps that we need and the people that we need on that journey. So that's kind of for me what really stands out around that particular saying.
Right. It's very practical.
That's
the dream part as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a bit OCD with organization. So you can imagine one dream got circled and then it got reverse engineered all the way to the final point of what I needed to do. And, you know, to that point, LinkedIn, again, is I think, you know, I've been harping on about it as a platform, but that's why for me as a young professional, I didn't choose, right, to go into something like Instagram. Now, obviously, every platform has a unique selling proposition. They all have an intention, right? But it's around really being able to influence professionally. And actually being able to articulate value in a trusted environment.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn obviously gives us the ability to do that.
And how did you then, when you had this dream of, you knew this moment had come to set up and launch your own company, where did you start? Because that's, again, you know, it might seem like a big dream, but where did you start by actually breaking down these steps?
Part of me wants to say the kitchen floor, but no. So a lot, obviously, kind of, it all came together when I was actually reflecting with the girl I lived with last night, and she had been part of this journey, right? Because she watched almost the panic, she watched all the stages, immense, and then she actually watched this business come to life. Right. And it was sort of through kind of understanding, right, that there was a value, right, that my market needed in terms of execution or partnership. So that was one in terms of an opportunity. The other one really was, Rose, I think that as young people especially, right, we chase titles and we chase positions. And I actually, you know, I've done 4 big corporate gigs now. I really love corporate. We all love it because it's safe. It provides us opportunity, right, that you don't quite get as a startup. But it was really around how can I combine all the best experience that I've had over nearly 10 years of work. Oh, that sounds terrible. It makes me feel old. But really, if I can combine all my best roles, what I really love to do, I thought about how that would manifest. And it wasn't working for anybody else. My leadership style that I wanted to grow, how I wanted to engage with people didn't quite fit within that corporate mold. And I'd obviously seen that through all the companies that I'd worked in, that if I really wanted to make a real sort of impact as a professional, I needed to be a leader of my own business and how I wanted to do things differently, etc. I wasn't going to go into a corporate like a baby rhino and bash down the walls, right? So really that was a kind of pivotal moment for me. And what leader do I want to be when, you know, I'm 60 years old and look back at my life? Where do I want to have led? How do I want to have created impact? And then again, how do I create a job, right, that's so linked to my why and my passions that it never feels like I work a day in my life? So there it was, you know, taking bits of my sales career at LinkedIn, taking bits of being an internal communication specialist, the digital specialist, and marrying that again with my strong sense of purpose around really wanting to fuel Africa, connect people to real jobs, opportunities, fuel their careers. So I suppose those two really underlying factors really kind of gave me that push that I needed to really solve for creating a business.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say, because this is something that I've heard in, you know, many of the interviews that we've done with Game Changers. Actually, a lot of them have said that they took that bigger picture approach of, okay, I thought about when I'm 65. I mean, it sounds really far away now, but it's closer than we think. Like when I'm, you know, at that certain age, how do I want to look back on my life? What do I definitely want to have done? And it's something that I really recognize in the sense that actually COVID kind of triggered that for me, that I was thinking, you know, like our health, it's so important, and being able to do the things that we love, you know, like we don't know how much time we have in the end. So I really want to make this thing happen right now. If I, you know, have this dream of launching my own online video trainings and really getting into those video projects that I have, then I have to do it now. Like there's no postponing anymore. Did you kind of feel this push as well from the time that we're in as well?
Absolutely. So I think, you know, COVID, the pandemic really gave me an opportunity, Rose, not to almost redesign it gave me an opportunity to redesign my life. So obviously I was ticking boxes off around my career. I was traveling to a point where I'd just come back to Dublin, pack a suitcase, be off to another amazing country. And it got to the point where I suppose why? What was again the why? What was I doing this for? Was I doing it for me? Was I doing it for a number? What was the value, right? And kind of getting really, really tight around that. But for me, I suppose going back to your point around we need to do this now. I've never really thought of myself or business as ever losing, right? You never lose in business, you never lose in life. You either learn or you win. So you kind of walk away, right, feeling empowered in either respect. So that for me, again, was kind of like the push, if not now, when. I had fantastic partners, right, that empowered me through this journey. The timing was right there, which was also amazing. So I suppose going back to network and actually building that network through personal brand that carried me through COVID, right? Because people remember again who you are, the way you've made them feel, and they'll come back to you in business. And
right.
I think kind of reflecting on the pandemic too, right? In the industry in which we operate, it's digital. I think the world suddenly felt this knee-jerk reaction, and digital transformation moved to digital acceleration overnight. So we weren't disrupted anymore by innovation. We were kind of like accelerated through a pandemic. And, you know, if I go back to my customers, even around career fairs, right? How do you attract graduate talent? In South Africa, career fairs are the bread and butter of graduate engagement. Now, all of that is disrupted. All those graduates lose out really on engaging with businesses, on fueling their career. How do we actually replace that digitally? And for me, I think, you know, it was twofold with COVID. It pushed me, but it also pushed the world. And in that time, obviously, was such a place for this business or the social path to come alive.
Yeah, yeah. And in that sense, how did you, because I read that you were very quick to see it as that thing that could really push you forward and see it as something that could also be positive. Of course, there's negative effects, but also see it as something that, you know, can push us forward towards change and towards new things. Because in your post, when you were leaving LinkedIn, you were very quick to say, I think this, you know, could be a life-changing, for the better, life-changing moment as well. How do you look back on that now?
I think my life is still changing, Rose. I think it's running a startup. I feel like change is the really only constant in my world. 1 minute I'm a receptionist, 1 minute I'm an accountant. So it you know, it changes a lot. But I think in terms of really kind of like the business world and how it accelerated that, it really was, I suppose, through customer and through kind of like solving for real problems that they had. If I think about, the way that digital's obviously played a key role in really like COVID's disruption. I'm trying to think, Rose, that was an interesting one. Maybe we come back to that.
Okay, yeah. We'll put a pin in it. In terms of, because as a game changer yourself, I'm sure that we have some people watching that are maybe about to take a big step, you know, move forward, do something completely different themselves. With this experience that you've had, or that you have now, what would you recommend, or what would you advise someone that's about to take a big step and change their own game?
Okay, so I think first and foremost, Google is your best friend. Google becomes your best friend overnight, and that kind of speaks to our dreams versus goals and how actually it's so attainable, because we work in a world now where we have access to so much information, and I think we take that for granted. We have to phone a lawyer, we have to phone an accountant, but really Google's at our fingertips. We can make websites for free. We can create our own content with apps like Canva for free. So I think, you know, if we recognize that we can obviously do a lot more and feel a lot empowered as entrepreneurs or as people wanting to start a business, that really we have this platform at our fingertips for absolutely nothing, right, to create our businesses. I think people and partners are really a big one for me. And that again goes back to personal branding and your network. Because if you invest in yourself, the right people then invest in you. So I suppose from that point of view, I've had the most phenomenal network of both leadership, of peers, of partners, right, of people in the industry that have wanted to partner with me and actually grow this business from that point of view. And they come with, a real wealth of knowledge. Understanding I'm kind of under 30 and 28 years old, I don't know everything, right? I've never actually started a business. So things that I really take for granted, other people like my friends, my partners, my mentors, have really been so critical in that journey. There's a great saying, right, that you are basically the average of the 5 people that are in your circle. So that for me is really important because, not that we just want to be friends with people that can help us in our careers, obviously, but it's the thoughts, it's the minds, it's the thinking, it's the perception really that can really be challenging from people and partners, which is actually what you need. Because sometimes it's obviously not the best feedback, but it's really critical feedback, right? That no one else, unless they really care about you, would give you. So I think people and partners, Google is one. Shared value is something else that's obviously it's a bit interesting and it can be obviously a bit wishy-washy. But for me, around somebody starting a business, especially in this climate, what shared value or kind of like circular economy are you creating for both you and your customer? Right. So to win, I believe in 2021 and going forward, we both have to be solving for each other's problems. So that's around creating something that drives that shared value. Because it's obviously not me that wants to sell something, but how do I really make sure that this is aligned to solving a real problem? And I think that if your product or your service can solve for a problem, you'll never be out of business for a day in your life. It's when we, or as brands, right, we think we're creating something that somebody wants. That's when I think we trip up, right? Because we get so lost in our own product development and our own strategy. But if we're really creating a business based on shared value and service, not always sale, then really I think that that's a huge differentiator in a way that you really create those memorable networks and connections and actually partnerships through thinking like that. And then I suppose there's one more, and it's based off a bit of an African proverb, and it's, how do you take the elephant down? It's really with a mouse. So, I mean, I started something that really was a huge elephant, and I probably did underestimate what was actually in front of me and what was required to build the business. But in Africa, they say that the biggest attractor for the elephant is the mouse because it's small and it makes small strides, and it actually puts a thorn in the elephant's foot. So really, if we all think of ourselves as taking, one bite at a time or one small step, essentially, we are going to take down the elephant. So we're really, going to actually to make the strides and the moves that we need to start achieving dreams and not just goals.
Again, something that we've been hearing throughout this show actually is like, what one step can you do today to get to your goal? And I think that's such an important one because usually when we have these dreams, sometimes for me, like I'm like, oh, I want to get to that point, but how am I ever going to get to that point? You have these moments where you're like, this is my dream and I want to go for it. But then other days it's a bit harder. So it's such a good point, I think, to take one small step every day. Like maybe it's just like texting someone or getting in touch with this person that you want to learn from, for instance. I think that's a really important one.
And I suppose to your point, Rose, it is hard, right? And that's something I don't want to discredit. I don't just sit here in my animal print with a big smile on my face, every single day. It's kind of that consistent approach, right? To kind of breaking this down into bite-sized chunks. And then again, I suppose putting your hand up and actually being able to say, I need to lean, or I need help, in a sense that I need to be connected to the right mentors. But then again, it's that why, right, that gets you through those moments. Because if you're so connected to it, those hard times when, LinkedIn sends you those wonderful emails based on your job targeting, for example, reminding you that there are all these wonderful corporate opportunities in the world. I get those emails, I see them, and a part of me goes, no. Remember why you started. And that's, again, that why, that strong sense of figuring out that professional why is so important, especially when...
Yeah, and just about that subject, because I've seen something similar here at home now. Like,
but me, you're talking about? This is a very strategic way.
Yeah, and I always like, because Rose just got those questions like, why I'm doing that if I can get that opportunity, and just like always she getting like for a few minutes, not like and sometimes like part of the day think about that opportunity. How you compare, or you see your goal and you keep like receiving those offers, how you can like just block that and say, oh, that's my goal, and how you manage that? Or because like, for example, here, like I see Rose really focused on what she's doing, but sometimes she got an invite for a recruiter and she just, but I'm doing something wrong, just say no and just like follow my dreams.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's one step to say, I'm going to go with this dream. And then another one to say, I'm going to stick with this dream and I'm going to see what happens, even if it means saying no to like a well-paid corporate job. As you say, it has definitely, it has good perks. So yeah. Yeah,
and how you see that, like when you see those offers, like you're just like, just keep going. Yeah.
I definitely don't just think maybe, I look at it and I think, okay, that's a cool company, that sounds great. But I think I just have to remember, it's down to the impact that I'm creating. So yes, the why is great. I want to drive economic opportunity in Africa. I'm so passionate about connecting people on a digital platform like LinkedIn. But it goes one step further, right? And I think, no one really understood maybe the back end of our jobs at somewhere like LinkedIn. But you start to measure things that you create, like influenced hires. You start to really see how you're really actually changing potentially a whole division of a bank, right? To be able to keep creating products that are keeping Africa at the forefront of the financial industry, or you're helping a bank reposition themselves to attract new skills to keep them existing into the future. That is what really makes me tick. So that's the midnight oil that essentially gets burnt. That's the why that actually manifests into something practical. So when I think about that, yes, how am I going to feel by receiving maybe a great paycheck in my bank at the end of the month, or versus actually every day, right, being not necessarily even recognized, but knowing that we are delivering such impactful work. Even sitting all the way, I went from the tip of South Africa to the tip of the other side of the world. So, even sitting so far away, I can actually feel the impact that the business is delivering for the market and how we're actually connecting more people to opportunity. There's another metric that we measure, and again, getting kind of into the back end, around how many new people have engaged with your brand. That for me is the most exciting thing, because again, that speaks to actually I'm exposing your business to new people who would have never actually had an opportunity to engage with the job opportunity, your leadership, your products, etc. So for me, really, it goes back again to that why. And I know I feel like I'm talking about it so much, but really in every personal branding talk that I give, in every graduate talk that I give, I start with that. Because again, if you can align yourself to that, something as simple as seeing how many new candidates I'm bringing in that weren't exposed to that business brand before is much more rewarding than potentially maybe that pair of shoes, right? That's going to come from that salary, or maybe that free coffee or fantastic international travel opportunity. So again, it's what makes you tick, what really fuels you as a professional. And it is going to be money sometimes, right? And that's okay, because you can't also do things without money. You can't make impact maybe in certain communities that you want to. You can't start projects without capital. So yes, it does link that to money, but really I would encourage those that are listening on this call, that are starting this, to figure that out, even within your own professional career capacity. If you are with a bigger corporate, does that align to who you are and who you are as an individual?
Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, I would
next time Philippe will just play it as back for me.
Yeah,
like when I have another.
Now we're just like replay that. Rose make a question.
I'm wondering, now that you are an entrepreneur yourself and you're partnering with LinkedIn, well, you are. How do you look at other entrepreneurs now? Do you have more respect, or how do you see this now that you are one of them yourself?
Sheikah, Rose, I think you hit the nail on the head with respect. I mean, like I said, it kind of like overnight, right? You lose the IT guy, you lose that wonderful expense form that just.
This is my IT guy.
So, I mean, before, right, I think, why is it taking that individual so long to send me a quote? Or, why potentially haven't they turned this around quick enough? But now I understand that one person, essentially, in a startup is a bit like an octopus. And I must admit, I guess I'm very lucky within sort of the time frame. We've actually just employed our first person. So that's been really exciting. So I suppose from that growth point of view, I've now got more hands. But Jeepers, it is with a lot of respect and admiration, because it's not easy, especially when you don't start this journey with such great partners as I was fortunate enough to do. So I suppose, a lot of respect. I think it's more interesting now to me, obviously. I think, while we've been chasing corporate, we kind of see entrepreneurs as these bright, flashy kind of people on the side, or we identify them to an Elon Musk, etc. And you just think, oh my gosh, how did he build that so quickly? How did he take so many people on that journey? So that for me has been very interesting. But again, looking back at the personal brands that every one of these entrepreneurs that I personally would look up to, whether they be in an African context, international, even just the lady that sold Bumble, right, the first CEO, that was incredible. But I suppose, again, we always have to remember and respect that we all start, right, from a kind of a small base, essentially with a startup. So it's with a lot of respect and admiration. I obviously now am kind of exposing myself to more entrepreneurs, because, like I said, we would have traditionally in corporate, right, chased a title, chased a person. So we would want to really be exposed to that type of individual who's navigated a complex environment like a multinational corporate. But I suppose it's also with some admiration to their tenacity, right? And their whole mantra, which is similar to LinkedIn's, of just getting shit done. So I don't know if you're saying shit on your coffee break, but it really does come down to that. How can we all be kind of expert generalists? It's no longer around being a specialist. I think that's what obviously plays us into a niche. But then we have to build skills very quickly, right, that help us scale, that help us sell, that help us keep growing our businesses. So kind of it's more praise and respect than anything at this point. And I guess I've got a long and steep learning curve ahead of me.
I totally agree. I think what has happened for me is that once I started chasing my dreams, and I had done this once before when I was much younger, I was 24. And what I could see happening is that once you do that yourself and you know how scary it is, and also the other layer of energy that it brings you and excitement. But I always see that I just have so much more kind of like, I really want to support other people that do that as well. That's kind of why I wanted to do this series as well, because how it is, how, this whole ton of emotions that comes with it, and also how much fun it brings you. But there's definitely that challenging side that you're just by yourself trying to figure it out and move forward. So what I saw is actually that I really wanted to support other people, and that it was like, when I see someone else kind of like announcing their idea, I'm just like, yes, do it, so I think it definitely, that respect is definitely there. Yeah,
good said. Once like I don't know, everyone is almost at the same path now, like passing through those like hard times, and kind of like, why you don't share it and you pass through that together. And I think that now that whole digital platform that like connects people, like LinkedIn and other platforms, it's really a good place to go. Like, even not like just like companies, but like blogs and all, as you shared before as well. You can create your website for free, and you can start something. You can engage with people, you can connect with people, and just reduce that gap and like reduce that impact as well.
From anyone in the world, which is obviously so key right now.
Yeah.
Because it's like before, was like 2 years ago, I just decided like create my channel, and I want to share the things that I've learned in Ireland and share with the like people in Brazil, because like, I don't know, like I pass through those situations. I need to get a course or something, but how can I share and like how people like, and I just decided to create a course, and that was like 2 years ago. And at the beginning it was like really low views, and now the thing just hit, and I got like comments, and that's just like, after 2 years, it just like brings so much energy to, okay, I need to just like keep doing that.
Yeah. And what you said earlier about the sharing value, how do you see that in terms of content, in terms of what you should be sharing with your audience, for instance?
Sure. So I suppose in terms of, if we look at it in content, and one of the things I think that we're going to chat around is kind of like a few key trends, right? So with content, there's been such a big shift, and I think many of us in the paid media world, we see that shift around. It's no longer just being able to push a message out, right? That a brand thinks that they need to communicate. It's actually understanding what people want to be receiving. It's using data, right, which is our oil in today's kind of century environment. How do we use this strategically to create messages and narratives that are actually aligned to audience? So I suppose that's the biggest sort of headline in that piece is, shared value. We service brands, right? And one of the biggest sort of areas around branding and creating brand strategies in this world is creating a brand of purpose. And I think link brands of purpose back to shared and circular economy and actually serving more than we sell. That's content marketing 101, if we want to really put a label on it. It's creating content that adds value without directly pushing a product or a service. So brands that I see create content that is fit for market and fit for consumer or fit for talent well surpasses that often of brands with huge paid media budgets. Right. And that's been another interesting shift that I've seen around value is that, especially with, I think, paid media, everybody's got a paid media budget now, right? Every brand, it's all shifted. Like I said, from COVID, we weren't just disrupting traditional marketing budgets. Now we're accelerating digital marketing budgets. So I think with that being said, we could amplify the message on the platform, any platform, to millions of people. But what actually drives that consumer or that candidate to click? And that comes down to actually creating a message and marrying a content strategy, like I said, that is fit for purpose for who you want to talk to, not what you as a brand want to say. So that for me, like I said, I've seen more success in smaller brands with smaller budgets that are creating content like this and that are actually showing that brands are brands of purpose versus brands of products and services. So that for me has been a really big takeout and a really big trend that I've seen, that started well into early last year, but that's really been so evident, especially in the world that we're in now. Again, if we think about brands that are creating content, every kind of brand, right, can be a commodity or they can be a brand. So if we think of something like shoes, we can't go to a retail store and enjoy that experience anymore. Sorry, I love shoes. I can't enjoy that experience anymore. So we actually are now inundated with digital advertising. But what is really going to get that shoe brand to stand out in the mind of me as a consumer? It's the way that they create a bespoke message and a strategy to engage me, not just a total market. And that's where I think that we see, higher propensity to convert, to fulfill in terms of digital advertising. So really content, I think, has been more king or rather queen in the theme of Women's Day this week than ever. Because it's no longer about a paid media budget. It's around creating content that serves for brands of purpose.
Exactly. It's that balance that you have between paid media and your organic content. It's interesting because last week or last coffee break, we were talking with Geert Menting, who is a social selling expert. And he was actually saying that during the first wave, people were kind of like, his customers, they were kind of like, this is just a 2-month or 2-week time.
4 weeks we're gonna be back to the
we'll go back to normal after this, and then actually, this whole thing started, and obviously everyone was like, we need to change something about how we're selling, about how we're building our personal brand. So as you say, it's just become so much more important, and no company nowadays can be like, oh yeah, no, we don't see the importance of that. It's just not happening.
It's all overnight, just like gone from first gear to fifth, and every single brand is now top of mind around how do we create a sort of a people-centric brand strategy. And I think that's almost one of the biggest new trends to emerge. It's no longer like what brand is saying, right? It's now what your people are saying about your brand. And that's kind of been the next big trend that's kind of emerged within my space. It's no longer brand paid media campaigns. It's employee advocacy. It's how do we create our champions? Because as we know, right, the whole point in social media is kind of like to replace our word of mouth, our referral systems, as they would have been in digital marketing. We see Rose has a VW or a BMW. We trust Rose. We go and buy the same car as Rose. Now, all that's happening, right, on a social network is exactly the same behavior. We're able to see the way our friends, peers, leadership networks engage, buy, recruit talent. And we essentially want to work at the companies that they portray. We essentially want to buy the products and services that they use if they are trusted. And I think that's just the case, right, of being able to leverage social media in a way like that, to remember how it works and to actually, use it as a community to either mine for candidates or customers.
Yeah. What is, because I feel like every time, during every period of time, there's always one certain question that we get from our clients. What in this time is kind of like the number one question that you're getting that people are looking to do, basically?
Sure. So it's kind of multifaceted, right? So I guess one of, back to your point is what content? So that's kind of the biggest question that I get asked all the time. So we've kind of touched on the content piece. The other one is kind of what is my budget, or how do I actually start to even take on and understand the digital marketing space, or how do I engage with this particular audience? How much does that cost? So I think that's also been an interesting one. Through acceleration, we've seen budgets overnight, right, double from a digital point of view, slim down from a face-to-face traditional marketing. But really, I suppose the biggest question around content is, what content do I need to be creating? And that's where I'm advising customers to go and understand who we need to talk to, and almost putting my traditional core marketing hat on and going, let's work backwards to understand who we need to talk to, what that audience is actually looking for from a product or service or from a career point of view, and then actually marrying a content strategy that is fit for purpose and very much objective based. So I think, 10 years ago, it was all about kind of like push out, post and pray. You kind of just create brand-centric content, you push that out, so you think people are going to actually engage with it. Now it's actually the other way around, because we as consumers and candidates have much faster and quicker access to branded pages to people. So content strategy is obviously number one. Like I said, also with the paid media budget, there's kind of no point in paid media if your content is really awful, because no matter what we do, no one's ever going to click on it. Yep. So I guess those two questions married into each other. What is kind of like my digital marketing spend, and what content do I need to be producing to really be driving people through my funnels, which is essentially, again, right, what digital marketing is. We're driving candidates or customers from a space of being unaware of your brand to actually converting, whether that means being hired in your organization or purchasing one of your products.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of
that answers my question. Yeah. Any content questions before we move on?
No, I think I would just save for later. No, we can wrap up. I've just listened today. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, very quiet. I think now is I'm just like the give the gears that I was free to Rose the leading today.
Cool. International Women's Day.
International Women's Day. I just listen.
By the way, as we're going, we're moving towards the end of the live. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. And I'll just give you some time. In the meantime, I do have some questions myself. If you're looking back at this whole adventure that you've embarked on, looking back, is there anything that you would change? Yeah, that's the question. Is there anything you would change?
Probably to spend less time on the kitchen floor thinking about what I was going to do and actually doing it. Obviously, when things happen, the carpet gets pulled underneath you, you kind of spend a bit of time in that gray kind of twilight zone, right? Like, what am I going to do? And again, just reflecting on, I suppose, the interview I was going to have today with a girl that was very close to my journey. She actually said to me, I took a lot of time in kind of going through the fear And I still attended all the interviews. I was even interviewing in South Africa, even though I knew very much, right, that I kind of was going to do this. I still was very fearful around breaking out of comfort, around getting rid of that secure paycheck, right? And I think that, if anything, I should have probably just acted in that moment and leaned in, right? Brene Brown talks about that really well. Lean in and actually get on with it. Because I think that even that time, right, not that I wasted it for my shareholders if they're listening on the call, I definitely didn't waste it, but it was more around kind of grappling with, am I going to do this? Do I have the self-confidence? And I think in that moment, right, there is no better way to describe it, that if your goal or your dream isn't big enough and it doesn't scare you, it's not the right one. So I think understanding that, I probably should have hurried up and got executing a bit quicker, and not kind of played in that space of fear and what if. I also think if I look back, I mean, only now in kind of the more senior part of my 20s have I taken mentorship and coaching very seriously. So I think, that is something that we undercredit as young people, because again, I think we go into an organization, kind of expectation versus reality. We know everything. We don't need anybody. So for a couple of years within my career, I kind of forgot about the mentoring and the coaching piece. And now it's become obviously so evident. So not that I think I'd change it, because it was something that I kind of did as and when I needed, but I think I would be more consistent and deliberate about that through my whole journey. Obviously not just these few months. Another thing that I've obviously come to realize is that you can't do everything yourself. So that's where you really have to play to your strengths. And those that have worked with me, those that know me personally, I really battle to say no. It's not a very, I suppose, good strength. It does get you, I suppose, very light, but it's not something that really is very sustainable. So being able to put your hand up and say, I'm not good at this.
Okay. Yeah.
I need to outsource this. I need to actually get a professional in. I need help within a business capacity. Hence why we now have an employee. That was really hard for me, right? To put my hand up and say, I can't manage it all. And come to that realization. And again, being such a strong, independent woman, it was really hard to let go and admit that we need some help sometimes. But again, if we can do that and realize and recognize very quickly what our strengths are early on in the journey, I think it only makes us stronger as leaders, as professionals, and as entrepreneurs, right? To be able to recognize when we can't deliver and when we need help. And there comes that whole cliche thing of, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. So that's been kind of an evident learning for me too.
Amazing. I think those are good words to end on. Yeah. So we always, at the end, we have some key takeaways, and we just, like, every one of us kind of talks about what we've taken away from this little coffee break that we had. So do you want to start?
I think the number one will be always remind Rose, like, to stay close the end.
Go back to the why.
Yeah, go back to the why. And also, that it's something that I believe as well, that the together, you will, like, further, like, and that's, like, also help each other. And even, like, when you pass through, we just, like, look back and just think, oh, before you had someone that also, like, support you to get that time. And so never forget that. And so it's just, like, keep, like, also sharing and help people. And yeah, and so we're just amazed, or just, like, quiet today, just, like, listen. And yeah, I think we have really good quotes for. I
was listening to you as, like, we do these key takeaway espressos, like, they're short, kind of like key bites, takeaway bites of information from the interview. And I'm just listening to you. I'm like, this is an espresso and this is an espresso. So I'm going to be really excited to edit it all together. And then I'll be sharing it later on our YouTube channel, which is CoffeeBreak.live, the same way that we have it in our title. So you'll be able to see these quick bites of information there from other speakers as well. So that will be fun.
Yeah, and just, like, for, like, the theme, kind of, like, again, the theme, like, the Women's Day, like, what are your advice, like, for, I don't know, one young woman that wants to start a business? Like, what's the key, like, things that, okay, you should, like, the top, I don't know, top 3 or top 5 things that you should keep in mind when you start your business, like for you?
For me, something that I live by with my own business is a quote that I use quite often, and it's, be a thumb-stopping brand in a world full of scrollers. So if we can think about ourselves, we can think about our businesses that we're starting. How do we create an offering, a brand, a content strategy that actually gets people to stop scrolling and actually engage with your brand story that is essentially going to sell? So think about how you're setting yourself up to be a thumb stopper, I suppose, in a world where we're all just consuming content all day, and that goes back to your point of differentiation. Remember that people buy why you do something and not necessarily what you do. So that's my espresso for you, Rose.
Yeah. Thumb stopper, I think, is the word of 2021.
Thumb stopper in a world full of scrollers. We know from Big Ben or something that comments about how much content we actually go through in a day. So how do you get yourself to stand out?
And being honest to yourself as well, because I think a lot of the times we're thinking about content and we're like, oh, people will watch this. But if you're really, really honest, like, would I watch this? Would I stop doing what I'm doing for this content? Sometimes it's just a no, and that's okay. But it's sometimes you need to be honest to yourself as well.
Yeah, we had this weekend was one subject. I was trying to create a thumbnail, and Rose came and said, "That's not the thumbnail that I would click." And I was like joking about that, but I do understand that. Like it's seconds now. Everything's seconds now.
Yeah. The first few seconds.
Yeah,
what
the first
do you
few seconds.
Decide?
Yeah, and how the people consume information now. We have, for example, TikTok that is like 15 seconds gap, and so you should be good now. You should like really be good to keep the attention.
Compete with that. Definitely. Yeah. In terms of your key takeaways, what are yours, Sam?
From the session today?
Yeah.
Okay. Really, that I'm quite humbled that you think that I am a game changer. So thank you very much, Rose and Felipe. I think also that I suppose that not to feel alone, right? So you've mentioned that you've obviously interviewed a few people that have changed this game. And I think that's one thing, right? When you're starting off on your own, it's a very daunting journey. I think that's where the fear comes from, because you're not part of an organization. You're not part of a pack anymore. There's no one where we can drive an escalation to, and it's kind of not our problem anymore.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, I think, that's a big thing, is that we're a community, and we need to remember that. And part of leveraging, right, a community is having a network, and that really is your net worth. So I think for me, that is a really big takeaway, is that there are a community of us kind of game changers, if I can use it like that we should all be leveraging and connecting into. And I suppose that goes back to my earlier points of how do we empower more people on the same journey as us, within the same gender, within the same race, etc. How do we bring more people on this journey and be more inclusive as a community?
Yeah, exactly. And that's been a theme for every one of the calls that we've had, is that everyone in their own way is now looking for their community that they want to learn from, that they want to connect with. And like, I think everyone has their own online communities that they kind of like lean towards, but that's also been a really important one for me, is to find that online community and to know that you're not completely working alone, but that there are people working on similar projects or that you can learn from. It's a really important one. Yeah.
Definitely.
In terms of my key takeaways for today, I just want to frame this quote that you had about, are you chasing money or are you chasing your vision? And I think that's just what I want to end today's session on, because that's a really important one that I'm going to remember at least. So thank you for joining us today, Samantha, the game changer that you are. I definitely think you are.
And just like, what is your plan? What is next? Like, who wants to follow you? Like, you have something to share? Like, where I can find some?
Where can we find more?
I'm not an Instagram influencer. Don't find me on TikTok. Please find me on LinkedIn. Samantha Coom, and that's where obviously you can see all my personal information and information about the business. What's next? So really, we've got fantastic stuff happening in South Africa with really amazing clients. So next is the whole into Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Ghana, the rest of Africa, we're coming, and then expanding into growth markets. So going back into the territories in which I work, so Turkey, Israel, Malta, and Greece. So really looking forward to hopefully in a year's time, looking back at how this business is not just a South African one, but at how we're solving real business issues in the growth markets region.
Speaking about big dreams, I love it.
Going places, Rose.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. You'll be seeing our espressos that we're going to be sharing soon. Our next coffee break will be in 2 weeks on Tuesday morning again. And that will be talking about another female entrepreneur who actually, this connects kind of like to today's session. She just launched her own company, Glitters and Goals. So like, I think you have to join us again, Sam. Because I think you like it.
Thanks, Felipe. Thanks for having me and have a wonderful day.
Have a good one. See you. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.